All right, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, Connor on Shane. Let's cover a bunch of stuff today because we got the market pulling some weird price action, but overall, I think it looks very good. So let's get into it. We'll do Bitcoin, ETH, a couple other things. I want to get into some stuff about exit strategy. I feel like it is so important in this market, especially when we're at a point where Bitcoin is literally about to break all-time highs again, potentially go into one more leg up, maybe two, I don't know. So let's cover a few things here. We got, like I said, so Bitcoin is what percent away now? I mean, this is on one exchange. Other exchanges oftentimes have other random wicks, sometimes have different stuff, but I know the top is around 109. So we're about little bit under, little bit more than 3% away from all-time highs. That is wild. Today actually, if you guys were watching the market this morning, it was actually kind of funny because I got so much FOMO when we finally broke. Again, I don't know if other exchanges had this wick or not, but when we broke into 105 here, I was, crazy FOMO again, and then it dipped, and I'm like, okay. And now it's all the way back up on this hourly candle, which I don't know if it's close. When did it close? 30 minutes ago? Yeah, so let's see if this candle can actually close at 106, 107. That's going to be wild. But anyways, today we're still up at the end, which is 2.68%, which is huge. Lots of projects are, moving a little bit. Mainly though, we also got virtual. Virtual has literally been playing the market exactly as what Bitcoin was doing. Just following it to a T. I mean, obviously almost everything is, but virtual itself, I've been kind of waiting for this thing to dump a little bit more. It really did not. Had a dip here yesterday. It's 160, which to me it's just a dip. I like to see a correction, where it's just a full clear break of structure, but the thing is how virtual runs too. Apparently, it just continues a bullish uptrend as long as the market is very bullish. So I don't know if we're actually going to get some sort of deeper correction on it. But virtual to me is still looking good. Crazy ecosystem. I think if anything is going to run and absolutely fly going forward, it will be virtual, it will be BitTensor, and a few other altcoins as well. Let's cover some exit strategy stuff though. So like I said, it's so important, especially going forward, that you guys understand, just where we are in this cycle and how to be looking to exit everything. For me, so some of the main things that I've been watching, things that I'm waiting for, obviously there's a lot of different macro factors that you can look at. But when it comes down to within crypto, there have been many simple things. I mean, I have these just on my charts here, so I want to talk about them. But as simple as from Bitcoin dominance showing signs of heavy weakness, ETH dominance and Sol together, not one of them running and the other one sits flat. ETH and Sol dominance showing heavy strength for a good span of time are two very key, very simple indicators that I really just want to see end up just doing exactly what they've done as they've done in previous cycles. For example, in the last cycle, what happened when alts decided to really run is we saw Bitcoin dominance tank for literally months on end. From when? Technically, from January until May. This thing absolutely tanked. And obviously that was the main first run for Bitcoin, because obviously in May into June, July, August, September or whatever, we had that huge correction from 60k down to 30k. And then at the end of 2021 rather, everything went right back up again. And that's when people thought Bitcoin was about to hit 100k. And then we ended up just finishing that cycle off, with heavy downside after NFTs started pumping and became massive. But this cycle, it hasn't shown any signs of anything like that. It has just been consistently trending up here. the Bitcoin dominance. We had, yeah, maybe in November here, we had a little bit of a dip, but we've had nothing even remotely close to this. I feel like there's many factors for it too, but I think once Bitcoin gets to a point where it's almost too expensive for people to want to be buying, and potentially a lot of people start offloading it and actually selling it, we'll probably see Bitcoin dominance decide to tank a little bit. One simple thing I'm looking for. The other thing too is like we saw ETH have a really huge run, right? Like 20% candle started to move a lot. But if we're looking at it right now, like in the grand scheme of where this moved, it didn't do anything. We need to see ETH strength really just go ballistic. And when I say ballistic, I don't mean it's going to pull exactly what it did last cycle. But if we could see some continuous, even a couple months of green, maybe up to, even like this general area, something like that would take alts to a, very, very good level. All different alts are going to run. And same thing, if this actually just for some reason continued, which, I don't know if it's actually just going to run like crazy like that, but I would at least expect ETH dominance to have a huge run, at least for a couple months, if we're going to see alts run like they did in previous cycles. Which is why also, though, for me, it's like, I don't know why people are flooding Ethereum so much, because if Ethereum alone is the one coin you can bet on, basically betting on the alt season happening or not. If ETH goes up, everything else goes up with it. And I don't think people even like understand that. Like even Solana, I think if ETH was having absolute god candles, this would probably pump Solana even further. Like Ethereum just needs to have some strength here and kind of hold. I'm kind of waiting for a little dip on ETH. But as long as ETH can really just catch up, go back towards its all-time highs, even its local highs for this cycle so far, which would be about 4K again, if it can break that. And, if it does break into new all-time highs, that is massive for literally every altcoin in the market. And that is where it's super important to be allocated in the market, especially when things are low. Yes, it's a lot more high risk. You don't know. No one knows what's actually going to happen. But the upside is whatever you're putting in right now, yeah, you could probably lose your initial investment, maybe 60, 70, 80% of whatever capital you're putting into altcoins right now, versus the potential to make a 5x, 10, 20, 30x on your current altcoin bag. There's no other market where that kind of risk to reward is just on the table. Maybe not that high. I would say at least in this cycle, I don't know if anyone is going to see a 30x from an entire portfolio, but if you're allocated in the right narratives, into the right coins, and you allocate like properly with size, into high caps you add a lot more, into low caps you add a good amount where if you still do a 5, 10, 20x on one, it turns into a really good size bag for you. But like I said, it's going to be ETH and Bitcoin finally just leading the charge. Obviously, Bitcoin has been doing what it's got to do. It's been trending up, going up, continuously running, but I'm going to be cautious at all-time highs here. And then also as things, if it bounces down and runs up, I think whenever time frame Bitcoin decides to run and hit an all-time high, and I don't mean like if it in 3 days, if Bitcoin's at 110, like, oh, it hit a new all-time high, like sell everything. No. We're waiting for this market to end up just playing out. Usually if we're going to run one more time, this likely, I would think, would have a minimum, would be like one more nice push, probably to like 120, 130. Again, that's kind of at a minimum for Bitcoin. But, even too, though, if we get a lot of institutions that start FOMO piling into it, they probably could start driving prices kind of crazy too. Even though a lot of, institutions are doing it OTC, behind the counter, or over the counter rather, from a lot of their buys and stuff like that. If we just get a ton of FOMO catching up into this market again, we'll probably see another retail sentiment just go crazy again. And I think that's just going to stem from Bitcoin just really running. But bottom line is, once we are getting to a point, guys, where it seems like Bitcoin is kind of topped, and maybe it pulls another move similar to this, right? Just pulls, maybe it goes from here, and then from, June, July, August, the next 3 months, it's kind of like a top, right? Bitcoin just hits a crazy level. We're at 130 in 2 months from now. I would be very skeptical of just thinking that it's just going to go to 200K. It's just going to go to 300K. It's already high risk enough in my mind to be fully allocated in the market, or just super exposed to stuff. Even though altcoins are still like at legit bear market lows, like I know they are, most of them are so down bad, but it's all going to depend on Bitcoin though. That's the thing, is because yeah, Bitcoin could be here, could be up here. Regardless of where it is, if Bitcoin decides to finally have that, that finisher move where it just finally nukes and it does not recover, regardless of where Bitcoin is, if your alts are at zero already and they're down bad, they're going to continue to go down. They will dump. If your alts are at all-time highs right now, they're going to start making heavy downtrends. So it's very key to be smart with how you're allocated right now. And focusing on just over the next few months, it's going to be, important to literally lock in. And when things start to look incredibly oversold and they start to look very toppy, I don't even know if that's a word, toppy, but if things start to look topped out, you cannot just expect it to keep going. You need to be smart about it in your head and say, okay, even if Bitcoin does go up 20% from here, 50%, I'm going to start selling. I will start taking profits as Bitcoin is going up if you're in Bitcoin. If, the other thing too is going to be ETH though. If Bitcoin decides to run like that, I would assume and I'd hope that Ethereum at least has another attempt. I think I just said that in this video. Has another attempt to running into an all-time high. But right, as we get to that point, this is when altcoins are going to go ballistic. And it's whenever that point happens, again, I don't care if that point is in August of this year, July, or if it's literally in December. Whenever that point happens where A, Bitcoin's up here, has already ripped, has decided to start chopping like right here. B, Ethereum and Solana are at almost maybe new highs, or even ETH is just sitting back up here, right? Just going nuts. When both of those are going nuts, Bitcoin and then ETH and Sol, we got dominance showing a lot of weakness on Bitcoin, and ETH dominance is starting to fly. Sol dominance is starting to fly to the upside. Just altcoins are going ballistic. That is when you need to start looking to take profits and getting out of the market. It doesn't, like, I'm saying this outside of any thoughts of how long you think this cycle is going to be. We are in this market to take a ton of profits from when those altcoins go ballistic. And they don't just go ballistic every 2 weeks. It's, like if you guys have been in the market holding, gaming coins or different coins that haven't done anything in a long time, it's like you probably understand that. But it's like once those pumps happen, it doesn't matter when. You need to take advantage of those literal 5x, 10x's across the board and sell and get out. And do not have FOMO. Do not buy back in on a dip. It's like, you just made those huge gains. That is what everyone is trying to make when they're in this market. That is why we are in this market for 3 years, going through, a 20x, holding it down, 80%, watching it go up another 30x, down another 75%, to then see everything finally have that last blow off top. That is when you got to get out, because at some point, it's not going to happen again. And again, especially ETH-based projects, you guys have seen this whole time, it did absolutely nothing. Maybe in late 2023, everything did have pumps. We have not seen a ballistic run for ETH-based projects in so long, So I think it's just very important that is when this when this stuff starts happening, you need to be fully on your toes to be selling and taking profits as things start really flying. Again, that is why we are in this market. Obviously, and the thing is too, is I have a lot of my main bags just chilling right now. And that's what I'm waiting for, is those main bags are going to make me a majority of the profits for the cycle, or whatever, maybe a good chunk, right? But it's like the thing is too, is now with the market, we got pump fund, we got DGEN shit going on. You can always play both sides. You can play the long-term gems, ride the whole cycle out, sell when alt season, the supposed alt season is here. Take your profits from your long-term stuff, put it to the side. That is your cycle gains. And then take what, 2% of your profits, 5%, and the rest of the cycle, instead of trying to feel all this FOMO, like you want to buy back in with all those profits you just made, start just focusing on DGen plays every single day in the trenches, because those are not going anywhere. I don't care what anyone says. It's basically ingrained into the crypto culture now. It's just coins launching every single day. I don't think that's going to stop. So it's like ride out most of your main bag, your main portfolio, with the cycle, with those altcoin pumps, sell, and then the rest of the time just play the DGen game. Even if you end up losing everything on the DGen game, you still have all of your gains from holding your long-term gems, or even just your main, high caps, right? That is how you should be in this market and how you should be playing. And again, once you're making those gains though on your high cap coins or on your main bags, you should not be putting all those profits into DGen stuff. That is the last thing you should be doing. I don't care what anyone tells you. Like I said many times, I treat this market in almost two completely different sides of the same die, same dice. I don't even know how to fucking say that, but you got DGen, complete DGen shit, brand new launches that go up and down every hour. But then you also got the long-term gems, the actual value in the market, the real utility projects, the solid stuff that will actually get you so many X's just by being patient, having a lot of faith and believing in a team, believing in a project. And most of your gains are going to come from the, those gems, the long-term stuff in crypto. I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong though, is they'll take every penny they have. All they're going to do is they'll DGen. They don't focus on the long term in this market. And especially now, it's like if you go on Instagram, you go on social media, the only thing people are talking about is, like meme coins on Solana, like the next 50x Sol meme. Like, it's like, dude, if you want to make money in this market, you need to have a long-term mindset. Understand where we are in a cycle, even though I know many times it's hard, and ride out the cycle from the lows to the highs and start taking profit as things go up. And then with a small portion of your portfolio, play with some DGen stuff. That is how I made my money in this market for a long time now, and I will continue to do that. Same thing, I will be holding a lot of my spot bags until my thesis plays out or doesn't. Like, yes, I'll take a fat loss, huge loss on everything if alt season over the next 6 months just doesn't do anything. ETH ends up just going like this, right? Which could happen. I don't know. No one fully actually knows. But it's like, that's what I mean. You got to be smart, have a thesis. And I've had the same thesis now for, since the bear market, So let it play out, be patient, and just be smart with it. As things really start to go up at some point, which we likely will experience, that is when you need to be thinking in your head that I should be taking profit on most of my main bags and leaving it and not rebuying. Do not get FOMO thinking it's going to go 20 times higher, because every time you do that the second you decide to actually rebuy back in is when it will dump. I promise you, it's happened to me more times than I can count. Just when you sell something, sell it after you get a few X's, a 10X, 20X, whatever the hell it is. Be patient. Wait 2 or 3 months to even look at the chart again. And I guarantee you, if you caught something like a 10, 20, 30X and the chart looks like this, and you sold here, yes, you might be like, oh my God, it's going to keep going. I guarantee, sell everything right here. Get out. Go touch grass for 3 months. This is what the chart is going to look like. 95% chance it's going to be down here in like 3 months. If you catch God candles, get the hell out while it is heavy in the green, mainly on a higher time frame, on like a 4 hour or a daily. If you got God candles on a high time frame, just get out. Be patient. So, anyways, that is what I wanted to talk about. A bunch of random stuff actually I kind of just threw in there, but just having an exit strategy, guys, is so important. And just some of the stuff I just told you is mainly what I'm looking for from a long-term confirmation angle. Where, okay, Bitcoin's at this level and it's starting to chop a little bit. Okay, point is finally taken. It's been 3 years since that point has finally been hit. I think Bitcoin might be at a top. All right, that's number one. ETH finally at a new all-time high. Been waiting for this for 3 years. That's a huge factor, right? Two. Okay, that's two. Then we'll look at the dominance. Bitcoin dominance has been nuking for 3 months. That's three. ETH dominance is literally looking like it's had an unbelievable God pump. Okay, there's four. Things that we've been waiting years to happen. Once they finally actually do happen, you got to keep your head on straight and be reasonable and be like, okay, well, I'm up 20x on my portfolio. Do I want to aim to hold for 100x, or should I just get out, take these still really good profits, and be patient? So outside of that, that's what I wanted to cover in this video, guys. I just think it's going to be very important to focus on that and being smart. Because again, it's very hard to know in this cycle where we are. So, I feel like we are definitely in the tail end. We are not early anymore. Technically, altcoins are still somewhat low, right? But again, that doesn't mean anything, especially when Bitcoin can eventually reverse at any time. Because when Bitcoin reverses, it doesn't matter where your altcoins are at, if they're at a peak or at a bottom, they will start to dump and go down. Actually, they will go down only as long, like the same time frame that Bitcoin is just dumping. So gotta be very cautious in this market. But again, I think going forward right now, I'm still very bullish. Bitcoin setup actually looks incredible. The strength that we're seeing is just nuts. But I'm curious to see though. Yeah, we're at 106.2 now. This is nuts. But I'm curious to see if tomorrow morning, like market open for stocks and stuff, if things actually kind of reverse. Because I wouldn't be surprised if we see a dip like this and then maybe, just like a big push up like that. But again, we're taking this cycle right now day by day. So we'll see what happens. And outside of that, guys, be prepared going forward. But outside of that, I appreciate you guys. And I'll have a good altcoin video coming tomorrow. So appreciate it. Thanks. And I'll see you guys later.